Welcome to Module 2, Using Pinterest in Virtual Education. As we've discussed in other examples of social technologies, we're going to start with the Pinterest basics, talk about a few lesson ideas, and then go into demonstrating Pinterest and how you may want to use it. Now, I will be honest, Pinterest is one of my favorite new social technologies to use. Although I wouldn't say it's new, it's been around for a couple of years, but I think there's a lot of really interesting creative and visual applications for Pinterest in your classes. Now, Pinterest is one of those social technologies that does have an age restriction of 13 and older in the US, and once again, this may differ in other countries. So this is ideally for students that are older to create accounts. However, you could create boards, as long as Pinterest isn't blocked in your schools, you could create boards that anybody can see without an account. So there are ways to work with this age limitation depending on how you want to use the boards. Remember, you could also post pictures or things for your students if you wanted to a board. And once again, they could see that collective board without having to have an account. Now, Pinterest is about, for those of you not familiar, I should say Pinterest is about collecting visual ideas into a board, like an old bulletin board. And those ideas can be pictures, they can be links and resources, they can be graphics, all sorts of different things, but they're generally about collecting very visual ideas to a particular theme or a board. Now, Pinterest can be fairly private, in that you can create with one account up to 3 private boards. And private boards are those boards, or secret boards, are those boards that only people invited to those boards can see. Now, you only have 3 of those with one account. The rest of your boards that you make, these bulletin boards based on themes, are public, so other people can see them. But you can limit how other people can interact with those boards. Maybe all they can do is see them and they can't actually post to them. Or maybe you want to have boards where they're group boards and all the students can come together and create something together and post. And when you have group boards, you specifically invite people to join you to post on that board. I wanted to do that with this course, but there's so many of you. I'm trying to add you as I go so that you could also pin to the board. But it's a little tricky because there's a lot of you and I've just got to keep up with that. There's no real easy way to add a lot of people, but if you're managing classes of 20, 30, 40 students, it'd be quite easy to just invite each of those students to join a collective board. Now, the nice thing about the profiles in Pinterest, it can be fairly anonymous information, right? They do need an email account, but you don't have to put your own personal picture there. It doesn't ask for a lot of information. In fact, there's very few fields that you have to require. So students could create accounts that are completely separate from them, that have images or icons or avatars or other things of them, of who they want to be, without having to share personal information through Pinterest. The style of Pinterest is very visual, as you've heard me describe. Lots of images, links, other visual resources. Think of it as those collages. When I was growing up, I remember coming home and taking magazines like National Geographic and Smithsonian and other things and creating paper collages that I would bring in to my teacher and to my class to demonstrate a particular idea or theme very visually. Well, this is the way to do it in an electronic environment. The pace can be slow. It could be quick too. You could create synchronous activities where in an hour session, all the students are on a group board posting the top things that they see that represent an idea or a theme. Or it can be very slow. It can be something like our board where we're just adding a pin or two a week, just collaborating and collecting ideas through the duration of the course. It's nice because then you have something very visual and very collective at the end of whatever that experience is that can reflect that experience. Now, you also annotate pins on Pinterest, so you can put comments on why you've added that to your board. And I think that annotation also allows for some reflection or some instruction around curation of content. So if we're thinking about visual content and how it relates to a theme, you can help coach students on using good principles of curating content, searching content, and including content, and understanding why they find that content the best content associated with that theme. So Pinterest obviously is really great for visual learners, visual collections. It can add a visual element, particularly to 100% virtual classes, that sometimes is challenging to accomplish given the nature of, that you're virtual the entire experience of that course. We can do a lot with text and some video, but this is more of a visual experience that can be really helpful in those situations. It's great for aggregating resources, and it's really wonderful, as I mentioned before, for helping students understand how to annotate, search, find, and then reflect on why they're including certain types of things on their boards. Some of the drawbacks: there's not a whole lot of writing. In fact, it's not really about the writing. So if you're looking for writing activities, this is probably not the right social technology to align that to. The annotations do allow for a little bit of writing, of course, but this isn't about what I'm saying in text. This is what I'm saying visually. You do have a limited number of secret boards. So either you have 4 or 5 email addresses and you create multiple Pinterest accounts so you can have lots of secret boards across your classes, or you're okay with having some of the boards be public, particularly because you may be working with students that are over 13 and then they can have their own boards that are public or their own secret boards too. Or you're comfortable with having the boards that you create on behalf of your students be public for others to see, because it's not about personal information that could be damaging or harmful, but it's about ideas and aggregate collections. Trust me, young students, if you're going to post for them, but you all make decisions about what to put on those boards, young students get a real kick out of seeing visually what they've created together as a class be public. Now, unfortunately, the general Pinterest audience are not kids. So your students, even your older students, probably aren't using Pinterest, particularly outside of the US. So the demographics are interesting. It tends to be a more female-oriented than male-oriented, and it tends to be older in their users. And there's users all over the world, but Pinterest grew up out of users in the US, and so you see a fair amount of more adoption in the US than some of the other countries. And those of you that may be participating here in this class have never even seen it before. So that can be challenging. The students have never used it, although I think of all the social technologies, it's one of the simplest and easiest to use if you've never used it before. Now let's just talk about a couple of lesson ideas. Asynchronously, obviously you could support visual-based projects, some digital literacy or curating activities where you're teaching students how to make the right decisions about finding resources and incorporating resources into the work that they do. It's also great for any kind of course that you're encouraging creativity or the very visual expression of ideas. You could even have students creating their own work. If you're in an art class and having them do drawings and other things, they could take a picture and upload it to Pinterest boards. So it's a great way to submit, or if they're creating objects or doing other kinds of things, it's a great way to submit that to Pinterest as a collection that's a very visual collection. And it's great for you to encourage your students in your class to collectively collaborate around finding resources. This Pinterest board could go alongside a bigger project that students work on so that you can monitor how they're collecting resources, perhaps make your own suggestions or pins to their board, and then they evolve those resources into whatever other deliverable that you've asked them to for their projects. Synchronously, Pinterest can be used just like some of the other social technologies in brainstorming activities. Let's all come together in the next half an hour and find everything you can associated with this political event. Okay, you've collected all of that together. Now let's talk about what you've collected and how that highlights some of the key issues or key understandings in that event. Once again, it's a great collaborative collection of resources as well, and you can encourage students to debate over why they might want to pin something or not pin something as they're collecting and working in teams. So I've got a question for you to think about while we go and take a look at Pinterest. And remember, I also created a Pinterest board, although I haven't invited everyone to pin to it, but I'm pinning to it so you can get to see what Pinterest looks like. I encourage you to create an account and try it out for yourself as well so that you can experience what those kinds of visual experiences may look like for your classes. There's a lot in education. In Pinterest, if you just search educational technology, or you search English grade 3, you will find lots of boards created by lots of teachers that can give you some good educational examples. So, back to my question. I've created a Pinterest board for my students to share their favorite resources reflecting what education looks like all over the world. I want them to start thinking about how other students learn at their same ages in other countries. So what kinds of resources would I suggest they post? How would I coach them on annotating those resources? So while you think about that, let's go ahead and hop into Pinterest. So I am loading up the board that I created specifically for this class. Creating boards is really easy. All you need to do is once you create your account, you can go to your boards and create a new board, and that's where you can choose the settings of your board. Now we'll look at the settings behind this Emerging Trends in Technology board. You'll see here that I've got a brief explanation, I've got the name of my board, and then I also have the ability to invite people to pin to the board. Now, once I've created my board, or at the time that I go create my board, I can also choose whether to make it a public or one of my secret boards. But you see there, I can just invite people to pin to things. So whether they're public or secret, I can always limit who can pin to my board to be just myself, or I can encourage others to pin to it by inviting them. So depending on how you set up your lesson in your class, you can either limit it to just you posting those resources, particularly if it's a public board for younger children, or if it's for children that can actually have accounts, you could invite them to a collective board, or they could have team boards where they're collecting their resources. Now you see here I have a whole host of resources. I've got images, I put some links up here, some video. If I wanted to go ahead and pin something to my board, all I need to do is add a pin, and then it'll let me choose. Do I want to choose something from the web, from my computer, or from Pinterest? So if I wanted to do something from my computer, it's a matter of choosing my image, and then it'll let me annotate that. Now you see here that my annotations are just below the image. So if I wanted to go in and edit a particular annotation, I could by just editing its description associated with that pin. Now, one of the nice things, a lot of our modern browsers have a little pin it button that you can add into your browser itself, so that whenever you're on a page, you can just click pin it and it'll automatically grab something on that page or associated with that page to be included on your board. And then you can just send it straight to your board. You can also, once again, pin things that you've created from your computer, or you can repin things that you see from other people. Now you can follow people too in Pinterest like you can in other social technologies. So if there's some people that you want to track their boards, or you want to use some of their stuff in your board, you can do that as well. So I hope you find this Pinterest application very interesting for you as you're exploring the idea of bringing visual social technologies into your class.